have a guest all the way from Miami that I've been stalking for months, maybe a year online, that I want to bring on. She is so amazing. Like, she is cool. Pun on the words. She is a creative director of an amazing company called Cool. She's going to tell more about her journey of being an entrepreneur in this world. And so let me bring on my new friend, Johanne Wilson. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome to Let's Go There, where we have real, raw conversation and just behind the stage, just talking to get to know you more. You are the real deal. I love it. I love that you just keep it 100 and real. And so let's take a moment, introduce yourself. Tell me what you do, what's your line of work and your ministry that you've been doing the last few years.
Well, I am Johanne Wilson, as you can see in my little title there that I was so excited to type in, like I was technologically on point. But I am a Brooklyn girl at heart. I'm living in Miami, well, in South Florida, in a place called Hollywood. So it's about 20 minutes from South Beach and all that fun stuff that everybody knows. And about 5 from Miami. And I'm here living, creating, loving, and doing what God has called me to do. And I am a mother of a gorgeous 12-year-old who I am just crazy about, and wife to the most incredible man who we fell in love in college. And, how many ever, oh, we did this before. It was what, 15 years later? Here we are. So, yeah, well, married. So we dated and did all that 7 years before. But so
Wow.
it's been a long time. Yeah, it's been a long time. And I'm an artist, designer. Just, went to school for that. That's what I studied. Went to MICA in Baltimore, Maryland. And um, and for my Canadian folks out there, I have family in Montreal, in Montreal,
Come
and
on.
some in Toronto. And I've been going to Canada since I was like what, 12, and have been going every year since then. So I'm really, really honored to be on here, and thank you so much
Oh, no.
for this platform and all that you're doing through it. Don't take it lightly, you guys. This is a choice and a calling that she's decided to do, and I hope that I know that it blesses people, and so
Oh,
thank
good.
you for doing it, because
Oh,
you didn't
no.
have to, but you do.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. I know you're so busy with life, running a church, running like a major brand company that's doing big things. Why did you want to what made you want to be an entrepreneur? Like, you didn't want the regular 9 to 5 job? Like, what made you want to step out and do this?
Yeah, I did the 9 to 5. I did it for a while, and I was working at different agencies. Started my career at Procter and Gamble up north in Connecticut, and then went to the agency side. Like literally, I finessed my way to the agency that we were working with at Procter and Gamble, and I was doing that in New York and loved it and everything, and then moved down here for love. That's what we do. And by that time, New York is a place where I always say it's like a bad boyfriend. You love him, but you shouldn't be with him. But anyhow, bad analogy, but I used to think it was so great back then. But yeah, so it was time, when it's time. And I just kind of just went, knowing, I feel like I didn't know it at the time, but I was led by the Spirit just to go. And I followed that and followed my heart, knowing it was the right thing. And I came down here, worked at several agencies over the years. And one, it was like a lingering uh, yearning feeling inside of me that it was time for me to go and to continue following the call, but doing it a little bit on my own terms, or at least mine and God's terms, without another party involved. meaning the employer. And you know what? Shout out to all those that are working for other people, because I know entrepreneurship is glorified,
Mm,
but I'm like, you can't be an entrepreneur on your own. You're still going to need to hire
mhm.
people. You're going to need help.
So
So
talk
like,
about for a second about the glorified look of the entrepreneur. Like
yeah,
people, especially out of COVID, a lot of people are starting these new businesses, and like in the beginning, like if don't be lazy because you have all this time, start a
yeah,
side hustle. It was this whole
yeah.
thing. Talk about it.
I mean, entrepreneurship is, I believe it's not for everybody. Like everything is not for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And like I said, I believe that some people are meant to help and to build and can grow and do all kinds of things working for other people. But entrepreneurship requires so much of you. There is no clocking in and out. It's 24 hours. It's and especially when you're getting started. But I've been doing this for over 15 years, and I'm still, it's at some point in the process or in your journey, you just decide, okay, so now it's time for me to clock out. And it is, and what it is, I'll just do what I got to do tomorrow. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't have that luxury through, as you're trying to build. You're just really in that grind, in that hustle, and there is no there. It's just, you do what you got to do to get where you need to get. And I think, part of that can be a competitive advantage. Part of that could be just the nature of the work that you're doing or the business that you're trying to run. And I know for me as a designer, that was definitely the nature of it. Even when I was working in agencies, it was a sort of 24-hour hustle. Or one of the companies I was working for actually put on our business cards 24/7, really. Like that was like
Wow.
their little motto or tagline. And I remember looking at that thinking, but no, not for this,
Mm-hmm.
and so I remember I kept looking at that over and over, and I wrote my resignation letter at a church conference, answered the altar call, and I was at the altar writing my resignation letter. And
Mm-hmm.
the next day I went in and resigned, gave my notice, and I was like, okay, God, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna take the leap and do what you've told me I should have done.
So how did you birth Cool? Like where did that come from?
My husband and I, we met in art school. We've been creating forever. And I remember like some of our uh, earliest memories were us doing our like drawing homework together. And like,
Mm.
we'd be in the studio for, literally 72 hours because it was that much work. And like, you just came up just to eat and then back to work. And so, and we would just support each other. And I think that's where it was birthed. It wasn't birthed, Cool wasn't birthed like officially then, but I think that's when we started building on that level. And so Cool stands for Create Out of Love.
Mm.
And that's what we do. I believe that we create from that space, not just because of our relationship, but because of the Most High God. God is love. And so I know that my best work has always been when I tap into the God that is in me.
Mhm.
And that's from a space of love. When you look at a project brief, when you see, okay, what is the purpose of what I'm going to do, what solution am I going to design and come up with, I have to have, it has to be approached, at least for me, from that space, from a place of love. And I remember early in my career, I always, one of the things that I heard from my creative directors, my supervisors at the time, they would always say, there's just so much passion and life in your work. And I think that's what it was,
Mhm.
because it was always created from that space of love. And so that's been our motto, mantra, business, everything. It's what we believe, what we do. And the church is Cool Church. So the brand is Create Out of Love, and the church
Mhm.
is created out of love. Because
Oh, so good.
because at that point we're serving people and we're reminding them
Mm.
what they're made of, what they're made from, and reminding them that they have that God in them. And so, so many people forget. or don't know their identity. And so as we're serving people in church, it's about reminding them who they are, of
Mm.
who they are. And so that's where the created comes from. And so yeah.
So good. What has been I think the lowest part in being an entrepreneur? Have you feel like being a female or even a Black woman that's been some struggles in that area, or even just kickstarting? Like you had the resources to start a business. Like yeah, you wrote your resignation at the altar, and then what was next? Like any low parts of this journey over the last 12, 15 years?
On the entrepreneurship, I had low career stuff for sure. On the entrepreneur side, I mean, the low parts. The low parts are probably when you think that it's over. I mean, how many times did I say, "Okay, this is over. The business is done. I can't continue doing this. I have nothing left. We don't have the right clients." There have been several times where clients weren't paying on time, so then I'm like freaking out, and I've had to let people go, and then I felt like a failure. I mean, that's like, I think that's not like a past thing. That's like a present. Yeah. um and I wouldn't even give credit to COVID even for feeling that way. I think I was even feeling that way before it
Mhm.
and even after it. And just, you I let me speak for myself. I've definitely battled with doubt
Mhm.
that, this is right, or that we should keep going. And it's so much like, maybe this is all a distraction and I just need to
Mhm.
focus on this one thing and just let the business go. And so, all those kinds of things, I think those are low moments. Those are moments where I really have to ask myself, you know, what are you doing this for? And I have to
Mhm.
remember the why, remember, what God showed me and why we started this in the first place. And then that kind of reminds me as to why I got to keep on going. And then it's always like God always answers like, "Oh, we just got this major deal," or something. I remember I was having one of those low moments, and then we get all these DMs about like our clothes are on the Grammys, and I'm like, "What?" And it was just like, God, you are something else. It's just, he always answers my doubt with
Mhm.
validation and with um just with love. I mean, it's just like, it's a love letter every time that I always feel that way. He's like, let me just send her a little something just to let.
On the Grammys, the thing is the quality of your, like, stuff is so good, like, such high quality, your marketing is off the chain, like, where do you get your creativity from, like, your ideas, like, where does it stem from?
The spiritual thing is to say God, right? But literally, I feel like it just, I pray before I work, and then I'm like, God, just help me see what you want me to see. And then let me put that down on paper, on, well, digital paper, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or frame that in a camera or in a lens. Like, just give me what you us want people to see through this work. And um again, if it don't move me, I don't think it's gonna move anybody else. Like,
Mm.
I'm like, I'm like, nah, this ain't it. If it ain't it, I'm like, it's not it. We gotta keep going, or we gotta go back to the drawing board. So, and that happens a lot. Sometimes, it seems like it's right, and then I'll look at it a month later, I'm like, what in the world were we thinking? So I don't ever think I'm ever done, which that's
Mhm.
another, maybe that's also a another low. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not, I don't know, but I feel like, yeah, thank you for seeing it, because I'm like, yeah.
No, it's so good, and, like, where I saw some of your recent, your articles, like, on end racism, I'm human, like, was that birthed out of the whole, like, Black Lives Matter last year? Was that stuff you were doing prior to all this?
Oh yeah, so we came out the gate with that, so 5 to 7 years before, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 2013
Mhm.
that we started putting out all this stuff. And we had kind of a social justice undertone with all of our work. The Icons collection was always about featuring people that use their platform to benefit other people, to bring people together, to speak out about injustice, to inspire people. So it's always been about that. And my husband actually was illustrating. He's the illustrator for all the icons, and
Mm.
so he was just drawing them really to teach our daughter about these people that inspire us, both of us, but
Mhm.
mostly him because he's the one drawing it. And then I would be like, do this one, you know. And so so that's really what it was. And I loved them so much. And I feel like anytime that I've ever done something that ends up hitting, I've never done it with like, okay, I'm going out to make this thing and it's gonna be, it's almost like autopilot, but we all
Mhm.
know autopilot is being led, right? It's just like I just go. It's
Mhm.
in it, I can't even explain it because I know it's not of me. And
Mm.
so the I was led to put them on clothing because it was just like, I think this is dope. Let's put it on clothing. Put it up online, sold out. Did it again, sold out. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And as still I was doing it like, a side hustle. And
Yeah.
then we introduced the jackets, and then like celebrities started wearing it. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is like for real now.
Yeah.
And then that's where it was like we kind of kicked it into drive, but a high gear. But your question was this whole social justice stuff. It's been like that. And you know what? I remember when I was in college, and this was many moons ago. I became one of the presidents of the student activities. Like you can create all types of events and everything. And
Mhm.
my initiative was culture shock. And
Mm.
so I was doing all kinds of like social justice uh, performances. It was like a performance art, if you will.
Mhm.
And for instance, on one of the, like, Mount Royal is like very gentrified. It's like where the school was, and super high, like rich, right?
Yeah.
And it was in a very impoverished neighborhood. And before, like, so it was a gentrified neighborhood. And so I was like, okay, let's do this whole thing where we braid people's hair on these pristine marble steps. And so, like, I had all these hair braiders and all these people just getting their hair cornrowed. And it was just like this thought of like, what if we appropriate what has been appropriated?
Mm.
What if we regentrify, reclaim a space that was gentrified? And so
Mm.
it stopped, and like all these, people in newspapers and all these people were just like mortified and thrilled at the same, and other people were thrilled. So anyways, like I've always, and even worse, a worse example or a better example of like a harder hit was Terrence used to do these lynchings, like these paintings of lynchings.
Wow.
And it was a series of them, and I had done some too. And we were just so impacted by a lot of what was going on and just history and everything. And so we did them and we put them up in the cafeteria. And that was part of my culture shock. And I was like, when y'all eating, I want y'all to look and think about this. All of you privileged people sitting up in this, a really high privileged school,
Mm.
where there's only 2% Black in a predominantly Black neighborhood and city. I want y'all to see the roots. And yeah, it was pretty gangster, but and
Come
we did
on.
get requests to take them down, and I refused, and I fought and won. So they had to eat it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Wow.
so just to say, I ain't new to this.
And
Yeah.
that's good because what I found in the whole conversation around that time is if people weren't having the conversation before, especially people of color, people assume we were just starting the conversation. And I think it says a lot when this is what you've been doing, this is who I am versus I'm not just starting a new conversation. So it speaks volumes, I think, to your work and your values of speaking against racial
Yeah,
justice.
and I think it's, I went to this school. It's MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art. So it's like one of the oldest art schools. It is super what's the word? I mean privilege. It's like that's what goes there. I mean, and even you're in the classes and the things that come out of people's mouths. It was just such a space where it was like we can't be serious. So we're all going to be here spending all this money on this highfalutin school to paint and do art, and y'all want to do, trees and butterflies. No, we don't. We're gonna say something. I'm gonna use this medium. It just became a platform to talk about real things, and I've always been so um, just passionate about injustice. And I'm like, okay, here we have, this is what God gave me. And so I'm going to use this to bring some substance, some real conversation to art. And now in fashion, it's like, you know, everybody can't be sitting up in Gucci all the time. And like,
Right?
Gucci ain't do nothing for me. I mean, I love a good little Gucci flat or something, but still, like, I'm like, we can't just be supporting all these brands that don't do nothing for none of us. And so,
Mhm.
or that don't even say anything. And so I'm like, we'll be that. Like, raise our hand. Like, we'll do the premium, the high quality stuff, but that actually say something and that are expressing, what we're thinking in this fight. And so, do we do it right all the time? Probably not, but that's just where we're at.
But what I love too, I love that you guys you're also a pastor and you're also in this, the marketplace. And I think when we think about God, God is a creative God. Like when we think about the creativity of the fact that we're here, he made us. That I think many people need to see that full time ministry is not just full time ministry in a church and in the four walls. Full
Oh,
time ministry is
absolutely.
who God's calling you to be, your purpose, and I think that's so powerful that you're able to use your gift for the world to see that this is you're walking in full time ministry, doing your very purpose. And I think I don't know if the church has done the best job of elevating the gifts in the arts to say, hey, that's a real thing. You can actually make money. You actually can contribute to the world to do that. And so I think that's just phenomenal what you guys are doing through your church and through your brand. Um, have you felt any kickback by doing mixing like church and um,
No, I mean, I do, we how do I say this? I know that especially in this space where we're talking about social justice and you have those that audience, right? You also, there's that other side that's like, oh, I ain't praying to no white Jesus, and racism in the church, which is I mean, we could have a whole conversation about that,
yeah,
right? And the history of the church and social justice has been ridiculous. I mean, some would even say that the church perpetuated it, right? And
mhm,
so, so there's that fine line where we've been treading on. Um, but like we all know, if you don't read your word, you don't know. It's like what Jesus, the Jews were marginalized people. You know what I'm saying? Like
mhm.
freeing them, like I said, we can have a whole other conversation about
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
So yeah, you were saying, like, have we had kind of a hard time working with both? I don't think so. We haven't. And I think that it's a welcome thing. I think it's actually opened doors for us because within the church. I think it's been welcome because we haven't heard this kind of thing. There aren't too many people that are really kind of treading both, you know. On the other side, where in the world and us being pastors and all that, that's kind of coming, that we don't lead with that, is my point.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so then it's like, oh, they start to get things and it's like on the packaging or it's on the label and it's like, oh, okay, yeah,
yeah,
so it's not been overt
yeah.
in our presentation, but we've been overt in presenting, what the word of God says. So So yeah, I mean, I don't think that if we're not in the world, then and if we're not bringing this gospel to the world, I don't think we're doing our job. Then we're just talking to ourselves, and we're we're supposed to go out and spread the gospel with
Mhm.
everything that we have, with
Mhm.
everything that God has blessed us with all of our gifts, with all of our resources. Go out. And I think we've been so comfortable in our four walls and within our little safe community. And I'm like, that's not effective. Like, people are dying. People
Literally.
are dying.
Yeah,
Like, we ain't got time to sit around and just, you know, talk to ourselves
it's true. And look cute.
and look cute.
Looking cute every week. How was the pandemic for you personally and for business, for church? Like, how did it affect you? Like, were you like really taken back from it?
I loved the pandemic personally. The pandemic was my jam. Like, I loved it because it forced everybody to take slow down
Mhm.
and stop doing too much, like y'all being extra. And I think that it from a business standpoint, being a Black woman was the best thing to be during the pandemic.
Come on.
Let me tell you something. Everybody was trying to throw us checks, and I was catching them. You hear me?
Hey.
Yes, I was. I mean, it was like, it is a good time to be a Black woman, not just Black, but Black woman. Okay,
Mm,
grants left and right. And of course, because we were already in the conversation
yeah.
for the topic of social justice and all that, so we had already done the work, and so people had somewhere to go when it was time for them to represent. So pandemic. And on the church side, of course, we um, the innovation of going online and accelerating the plan that we already had, because our church was only 3 years. We were only 1 year in when the pandemic hit, so
Wow.
we hadn't started our video stuff or anything yet, or live streaming. That's what I want to say. and
Mhm.
and it made us accelerate that, and that was excellent. I mean, within the next week we were up and running, we were going. I mean, it was a little shaky at first, but we got the hang of it. And yeah, and I love that it took the production quality out. So everything was, yes, Michelle, I feel you, them grants was it. Um, so yeah, I love that everybody just, took out all the red tape, and just everybody kind of got real. I loved when everybody was doing lives and it was messy and it was kids in the background, dogs and all that. And I think it made it okay, because remember, women, we have kids, and we have lives, and we wear all these hats. And
Mhm.
before the pandemic, all of that was frowned upon.
Yeah.
And now it's like, even as we're coming out of it, it's like, okay, this is normal life, and I can live a normal life and still kill it at work and get
Wow.
things done. And so I love that. I think it made people more empathetic and just connected people. And then we know now we're kind of people are attributing a lot of the craziness that's happening to the aftermath and the impacts of the pandemic. So that's something we're going to just we're not even going to really understand fully, for years to come. But I think during the pandemic,
Yeah. It was great.
yeah,
I want to go back to what you said. I think the fact that you were already you were starting the thing already before the thing came, the pandemic came, and it just doors even opened more. I think that's a key thing for a lot of people to hear is start where you're at, because you never know when the door might open. You were
yeah.
ready. You were already like it was there. Like you've been doing this. So it wasn't like a lot of people had to like catch up, start new things. It was like we've been doing this. So come on,
So
it's go
let's
time.
stay there. I think that's really important, and I'm so glad you brought that. And I think the message is that if you delay the dream and
Mm,
you delay the vision God has given you, you may
so
miss the
good.
appointment that you have in the future. And so don't delay, because everything that you do is tied to something in the future.
Mm,
And so, that little gesture of saying, "Oh, I'm gonna throw these on shirts," it didn't mean anything back then. It didn't feel like it was that big, but the wheels were moving. We were already in motion for what was going to happen in the future. And so, every moment you delay, you're the assignment that you're called to ultimately is already being lost. Like you're
Wow.
already missing that. That every second you delay. So I love that you pause there, because I think that's extremely important. And I think that it just lets the other part about that is every great business idea has to start with a need, and which also talks about timing. You gotta have, like, when it hits, it's about great timing, the right product, the right service at the right time.
Mm.
And so there's time is so important. And so that's another reason why you want to make sure that you're moving. And you know what, you don't have to go fast, because I believe that forward progress is still forward progress. That's what we're trying
Mhm.
to do. So I know a lot of people see fast growth, or they may think, oh, we just blew up. We've been doing this for years and years. It's been slow growing, but I think that it's given us roots. Our roots have been able to grow deeper, and I think that we're more fortified now for the places that God has taken us. It's the reason why we're still packing. I mean, we do have a warehouse, a space or whatever, but I'm still packing Macy's orders in my house.
Come on, girl.
From Macy's to, I mean, from Hollywood to 34th Street, the biggest department store in the world. It's like, you know, our roots are so deep, so
Mhm.
we're able to handle that type of assignment or
Mhm.
request. I mean, it's an order, but ultimately for me, it's an assignment that we were given. And um, so yeah.
Something I'm learning you have such good perspective. Everything I've from a negative question or negative statement, you always look on the positive. Like from you in the backstage, I asked you, "Are you lonely in ministry?" Like lonely in ministry? No, I have such a good team. Most people always go for the negative, and you've always flipped it every single time. Is that how you think? Is that a natural
I think
disposition that
so.
you are?
I think so. I think there's a lot of things, like last Sunday, the thing of the day was my dog, who I love so much, ran away right before church. And when you're trying to focus, you got
Mhm.
a message, you got things to do, and time and all that stuff. And I'm like, I can't go to church. I gotta, like, I'm not gonna leave my dog in the street. And
Mhm.
so and I realized, long story short, we found her before church, thank God. But then God just showed me at that moment. He was like, that, like, I felt like that was a prophetic message to
Mm,
tell everybody at church that everything that you have lost will be found in
mm,
Jesus' name. And
mm,
so I think that mom taught me that, actually. She's like, everything that happens in your life, it's a message. There's something you need to look at it to understand what's happening in the spiritual realm.
mm,
You see what I mean? Like, this everything that's happening is not for nothing. And they
mm,
say everything happens for a reason. Yes, yes, yes. But it's not just that it happens for a reason, but there is something happening in the spiritual realm. And
mm,
so the pandemic for me was, in the spiritual, there was a shift happening around
mm,
the entire world. Things cannot change without a shift. And so
mm,
there had to be a dramatic shift that had to happen. I mean, the whole world got flipped upside down in no time.
mm,
And so, but that was necessary. And look how quickly God's word was projected and spread throughout the world through digital means. Like, I feel like the churches that did rise to the occasion. I mean, I've heard so many incredible stories about how much further the word has gotten, and
mm,
how much wider audiences got. And it's just like, you can't do that. Innovation always happens whenever there's challenge.
so
Whenever,
good.
like, when the car was invented, when, like, all these things that we're seeing and inventions happen out of a challenge, a necessity. And so we have to rise to the occasion. So I look, I look at things always like the challenge is like, okay, what's happening here in the spirit, and what is the opportunity? because at the end of the day, I can't stay here and I still got a purpose.
Right.
God didn't promise that this was going to be easy. When
Mm-hmm.
I said yes to Jesus, he didn't say, "Oh, there's going to be no challenge, no nothing." Like, look at all that Jesus had to go through. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, if it happened to Jesus, I am nowhere near that. So yeah, somebody said it, necessity is the mother of invention. Absolutely.
So good. If you could go back to your 16-year-old self, what would you tell her?
What would I tell her? Buy a house. Save your money and buy a house. Invest. Stop spending money on dumb stuff. Like, yeah,
Mm,
I would say that. I would say, what else would I say? I would say boys are cute, but you know, you can't have them all.
mm.
And I was like, I want 4 boyfriends. I want them. What else would I say? Slow down. That's what I would say. I was
Mm.
like, I wasn't like fast. I wasn't like, you know, sleeping with all these boys and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm talking about. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I just was impatient with
Mm.
everything. I wanted to see things now, now, now. Yeah, I would say slow down, see, you know, and I missed so much that was right there because
Mm.
I was just on to the next thing.
Did you know from a young age that God has special calling in your life? Like, did you know that like the greatness was upon you? That you knew that you're impacting the world through your marketing, through your pieces. Like, I know I saw your stuff in movies. Like, I watched a movie a couple months ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's in movies. Like, wow, you're on the Grammy. Like, did you know at a young age that, man, I know that God has a big call in my life. I just haven't caught up yet, or it's like I have oblivious, no idea that I would be who I am or what God's calling me to do right now.
No clue. I think mom does a good job of reminding me of things I said or did, you know. Um, but I'm not one of those that was like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be this. I like now that I hear stories. Um, for instance, here's the thing. I remember my mom told me we were living in an apartment building, like a complex. Down here, they've got them it was apartment complexes, and then it has the laundry room, and it's
Mhm.
shared. So we had our laundry in there. And at the time, my mom was an aeronautical nurse, so she traveled a lot. And this was back when airplanes had nurses on them, and so she had a lot of stuff from like Europe and all her travels, that the clothes that she had bought me. So I had like really fabulous dresses and things like that. And so she goes to check the dryer, and everything's gone. And she's like freaking out, like, oh my God, this dress is gone. Like she's going through her mind about all the stuff that was lost. And she tells me, I looked at her, and this is like when I was 6 or something. I looked at her and I said, but mommy, what if that person that took it didn't have any clothes? So
Mm.
now you have clothes. And I said, and now they have clothes, and you have money, you're rich, buy me more. That's what. So I think that kind of stuff um doesn't remind me, because I didn't maybe it does remind me of maybe the heart and the the perspective, which all feeds into
Mhm.
the people we are today, right? So the short answer, no, but mom reminds me that there was something special.
Something special. And lastly, who inspires you?
um She does. Mom does. She really does. Just I have a lot of powerful women in my life, aunts, moms. My one of my greatest friends, who it feels weird even calling her a friend, because she's my sister.
Mhm.
And like her mom has always treated me like her daughter. Like when we went to college, she bought all, she was buying all the stuff you sent kids to college with: toilet paper, I don't know, towels, computers. She bought two of everything, because it was like
Wow.
we she had two daughters, so she had to buy two of everything. So, and to this day, I mean, she's just her. I'm really inspired by people who don't have to think hard about being good people and
Mm,
responding. You
mm,
know, it's like there's a need, fill it. Like Janine McBath is another one. She's a pastor in Virginia. I remember like she invited me to speak. And this was like my first speaking anything. Like,
mhm,
and I'm sitting here, why me? She's like, why not you, girl? You know, all that. And but what I love so much is like there was a few women that she just grabbed right off the street to come into the conference, gave them, you know, red carpet treatment, whatever. She comes over to my booth because I had a booth after speaking with our clothes and everything. She's like, fill a bag and give her all kind of clothes. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like giving her all this stuff and I didn't think twice. I was like, of course I need to do this. You know,
mm.
at first I was like, well, no, this stuff is expensive. And then I was like, but no, it's what you know, somebody has a need, you fill the need. I mean,
Mhm.
so that was a lot of people. I can't just say one, but I think
Yeah.
powerful women in my life. I think that's who inspires me.
Well,
And
Joanne,
yeah,
thank you for your story, your journey, and sharing. I just feel like this is just so much more. Like you're literally just at the beginning. Like there's so much you're gonna, to the kingdom pour in, to the world. The fact that you are in Macy's, Big Box, the Grammys, movies, even though you didn't see it from a young age, God obviously is directing your path. And I don't know, I just feel like God's just going to use you in just a mighty way. And just as a Black leader, as a woman, I love that just hearing that you have a strong community of women around you speaks a lot. And I love to see the women in my own church. Like there's just the young women in my church that are rising up just makes me smile because
right.
it's the next generation. They're doing it. And I just love it. I love the creativity. I love the sisterhood that's going on. And I think that, people like you and I, even connecting, I feel that's what our society, our church, our world needs more of community
Absolutely.
like that and sticking together. And so thank you for what you've been doing. Thank you for being faithful. Thank you for the many hours that you pour into laboring in, even though it's your passion, it takes a lot of work to even produce pieces. And out there, if you've not, please go check her website. Her stuff is literally phenomenal. They're cool. They're great. And so thank you again for being on the show. And I cannot wait to grow what God has in this beginning stages, the seed form on friendship
Yeah.
and what God has. And so thank you, thank you, thank you again for coming on. And so I will talk to you backstage in a couple minutes. Thank you again. Guys, oh my gosh, Johanne was so good. And I think we all can learn from just her story and the nuggets that she was dropping about starting wherever you're at. And, innovation comes through hardships and challenges. And I know for me in this season, I'm just starting from just the little I have in this place, my little room, starting a show, even though I was so nervous to do it. I just feel like God wants to open the doors to have conversation with real people. And so if you have not, subscribe, share the link to other people, and listen, we have more people coming up in the next couple of weeks. And so guys, I'm so glad you tuned in today. And lastly, you know what, listen, I am doing a women's event in a couple weeks. It's called Dream Again. It's about to be amazing. The team has worked so hard to make this amazing experiences. And I know that through the pandemic, a lot of people have been scared. They put away the dreams that God has put in their heart. And this is going to be an opportunity to facilitate some good word discussion, and go to servecitywomen.com if you want to get a ticket. It's going to be in a couple weeks. And so guys, have a great evening, and I will see you next week at the exact same place and the exact same time. See ya.